Good evening. The September 16th Board of Education meeting is now in session. Please rise for the invocation. O God, we pray to administer that which is just in all educational policies, being ever mindful of your guidance, stir us to action with love, wisdom, and understanding. The pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 2.03, approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes? All those in favor? Motion passes 9-0-0. Item 2.04, establish agenda order, and the agenda stands as published. Item 2.05, recognitions. We have a presentation.
President Korbelek, Vice President Nally, Dr. Olato, and members of the board, good evening. I am Michelle Batten, Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction, and I am here along with Lenny Dykstra, Coordinator of Visual Arts, with the great pleasure of introducing this evening's board recognition. Before we begin, I would like to ask the members of the board and Dr. Olato to come to the front. Tonight, we are thrilled to be able to honor 3 outstanding art students who lent their talents to our 2015 Leadership Conference and enhanced the learning experience for administrators across our school system. The conference theme was Growing Ourselves to Grow Others, People, Passion, and Purpose. As the Planning Committee met and talked about the importance of the student voice being uniquely present throughout the day, the committee borrowed on the experience of others and utilized a suggestion for students to illustrate a session live at the conference. It was both a great way to showcase the student voice and to have the participants experience the art of visual journaling firsthand. As participants at the conference listened to and talked with Todd Whitaker, nationally recognized in the field developing outstanding educational leaders, 3 Severn River Middle School students, Madison Larson, Nicole Emery, and Hannah Munley, put those thoughts into the art, which is reflected on the board before you. The intent of Dr. Whitaker's message, What Great Principals Do Differently, was to capture how effective school leaders promote teacher development, turn challenges into opportunities, lead change, and inspire an entire school community to strive for greatness. This graphic recording made the presentation memorable and remarkable, and it truly captured attention of the participants. Dr. Whitaker put it this way: I enjoyed having such talented students document my presentation by drawing colorful images, symbols, and words. These amazing artists listened and captured in real time the significant concepts and content so that they were visible and tangible for the audience. I was excited to see these artists in action. What awesome students. Research clearly shows that learning and retention increase when multiple senses are called on. Visual journaling engages visual perception, which studies have shown increases retention by 40% over the spoken word alone. This visual journal captured the contents of the keynote in an engaging fashion and served as an effective touchstone for recalling and educating others. Madison, unfortunately, could not be with us tonight. As Nicole and Hannah come forward, please join me in thanking them for their outstanding work and for contributing to the ongoing education of our school system administrators.
Thank That's a life lesson there. Susan, give us a chair. Okay, you bring it to. Try to set this one right here. Sure. Just a teeny.
I'm not happy about my camera, but hopefully I'll be able to make this work.
We're not going anywhere.
I'm sorry. Yep. I will do the best I can with this. I'm sorry.
Check with the guy back there.
Anybody got a cell phone? Oh, here comes the cell phone.
The big fancy camera, good work. This looks awesome. Everybody smile. Okay, can I take one more? Great. Thank you.
Our next item is 2.06, school and community highlights. Don't. Mrs. Hummer?
I've been to 3 back-to-school nights in the past, since the last board meeting, with one more to go for my children, and I've been so impressed with all the different schools that I've been to, and the enthusiasm from the teachers and everything's coming out, so it's been great to see the good start. So hats off to Annapolis High School and Monarch Global and Meade Middle School, and I still have one more to go next week. So,
Mrs. Nally?
On Friday night, I attended the Arts Alive celebration with Dr. Alato and many of our my fellow board members, and it's the major fundraiser for the arts for Maryland Hall, and it was fantastic. It brings the whole community together, and it just makes you feel so good when you see the number of people who are bidding and to make a difference for children, and to be able to participate in the programs there at Maryland Hall. If you have not seen the new Maryland Hall renovation, I encourage all of you to stop by and see it. It is really a wonderful asset to Annapolis and to our PVA program at our Bates Middle School students. So thank you very much. It was for everyone who came out Friday night.
And I just want to piggyback on what Julie said. I got to attend my last ever back to school night as a parent, and my first back to school night, or my son's first back to school night as a teacher. So it was a lot of fun to be at Annapolis High that night. Mrs. Ritchie.
This evening, when you came in, you probably noticed there was a lot of cars that were in the parking lot. They were down at the PBIS Awards Recognition Program, and thankfully, I walked in just in time to hear the story of this young, amazing, I can't say amazing enough, young woman who went to Meade High School and the trials and tribulations that she went through. And I dare anybody to tell me there was a dry eye in the house. I'm crying now again, because absolutely what this young woman went through and is going to be walking across that stage in June is just absolutely phenomenal. And she gave credit where credit was due, not only to the people outside of her life, outside of school, but also to those. If she mentioned the PPW and the guidance counselors more than one time, it was just absolutely amazing. The people who wrapped around her to be able to support her, and she is only one of the 80,000 or so students that we have that has a story to tell that we don't necessarily always see when we go by the bus stop. So I'm just in awe of what gets done every day, and I'm in awe of that young woman. And I just and here I go again.
Okay, item 2.07 is the CROSC report.
Good evening, President Korbelak, Dr. Arlotto, and members of the board. My name is Michael Moore. I am a junior at Severna Park High School, and I am the second vice president of the Chesapeake Regional Association of Student Councils. 2 weeks ago, we had our first meeting of the CRASC executive staff. Attendance was robust, and we were all a little rowdy, seeing each other for the first time since summer break. We picked up a number of new participants, and we are exploring some new ideas. This year, our General Assemblies will be organized thematically. This will allow us to guide the direction of our workshops and link our keynote presenters in with the larger discussions of the day. Our theme for the first General Assembly is Our School System. We are developing workshops and activities designed to orient students to some of the more ambiguous and mysterious areas of interest, like school lunches and security. This General Assembly will be held on October 23rd at Lyndale Middle School. We are also planning on outdoor components to get students moving while reflecting about their own leadership styles. Let's hope we have good weather. Our next executive staff meeting is September 30th, right here at the Parham Building at 6:30. We plan on working on workshop props and filming footage for the General Assembly trailer on our YouTube channel. And finally, homecoming season is upon us. I encourage my fellow students to act responsibly and make healthy choices that will not only benefit themselves, but their peers as well. Be safe. And thanks to you for allowing me to represent the students of Anne Arundel County.
Thank you. Item 2.08 is the PTA report.
Good evening, President Korbelak, Vice President Nally, members of the board, and Dr. Arlotto. I'm Pam Bukowski, President of the Anne Arundel County Council of PTAs. To begin with, we would like to congratulate and welcome student member of the board, Jacob Horskamp. Since our last report in June, PTA has continued to remain active as we quickly ended one fiscal year and began another. In June, several Anne Arundel PTA members attended the National PTA Convention held in Charlotte, North Carolina. In July, Maryland PTA celebrated 100 years of advocacy for the children of Maryland during its annual convention in Rockville, as President Ray Leone of Edgewater completed his term, passing the proverbial torch to Elizabeth Yulsa Light, also an Anne Arundel County resident. New returning leaders of local PTA units from Anne Arundel County attended, taking advantage of the numerous workshops designed to cover every aspect of building capacity, not only as a nonprofit, but more importantly as an advocacy group. In August, we were pleased to be among the supporters for two back-to-school events, one at Meade Middle for the Meade cluster and the other at Abundant Life Church for the North County and Glen Burnie clusters. AACC PTA sponsored an informational table and passed out pencils to all students coming our way. We gave away over 1,000 pencils. It was our honor to be among other advocates for our schools, students, and families. School and Family Partnerships, Anne Arundel County Reading Council, TAC, Department of Health, Partners for Success, local faith-based organizations, and administrative reps from cluster schools, to name only a few. In anticipation of the 2015-16 school year, we at the county level have endeavored to avail ourselves by offering supports to our school units. Many audit and financial review sessions were held here at the board and at libraries throughout the county. As of August 31st, sessions have been held at every library in the county within the last 13 months. This is a PTA year of change, complete boards stepping up to the plate, new principals. Clearly a time of renovation, maybe modernization, revitalization, or replacement. And where the leadership is effectively working, they require little in the way of modification. Northeast High School has been rechartered, bringing our total of high schools to 7. Phoenix Academy is beginning the chartering process with MDPTA. Our board has met for a planning meeting and has held our first board meeting of the fiscal year. Our first major event will be a general membership meeting on Saturday, September 19th at the Carver Center. A light breakfast and a business meeting will start the day, followed by presentations from Teresa Burge, who will speak to the mission, vision, purposes of the board, Teresa Tudor, who will discuss school and family partnerships, as well as explaining something about the organizational structure of AACPS, Ken Simcox to share information about our county schools food services area, and Ray Leone, who will clarify some points from the recent MGT study. We will also be offering a final group audit session on September 28th and will present leadership and financial training to our local PTA officers on Tuesday, October 6th. In fulfilling its mission, PTA stands ready and willing to support our schools, engaging and empowering families and communities to advocate for all children. As always, PTA thanks you for these many opportunities to speak for every child, one voice.
Thank you. We'll now move to the public comment portion of the meeting. Anyone wishing to speak on an item not on today's agenda may offer testimony during this public comment portion of the meeting. Speakers will be allotted 3 minutes each. The board asks that comments remain civil and appropriate for the various audiences that may be watching or viewing the meeting. Student-specific and personnel matters are confidential and cannot be discussed in this forum. This time is intended for speakers to voice their opinion, but not necessarily as a question and answer period. Speakers may pose questions, but answers will be counted toward the 3-minute allotment. For the record, please give your name before speaking, and handouts should be given to the board assistant. I have 10 completed cards, so I'll call you up in groups of 5. I have Josh Mazee, Major, Jane Hudeberg, Aphrodite Bodycomb, Deborah Waston, and Angelica Riviera.
What's your name? What's her name? Angelica's not speaking. Okay, yeah.
Hi, everybody. My name is Josh Mazer, and I want to start by thanking the board and everyone in this room for a really great experience in Anne Arundel County Schools. I have a junior at Broadneck who is on varsity sailing. We are having a wonderful experience at Southern High with the Kennedy Krieger program for special needs kids. And we are having a wonderful experience at Arundel Elementary. So I'm going into my 12th year now in these wonderful schools. And thank you for the wonderful job everybody does. I'm just here to comment on having received 3 pushes for the flu miss shot. I received a text, I received a note from the school, and I also received an automated phone call. And it makes me wonder if there is possibly a financial incentive of some kind to increase the uptake of this shot or this vaccine in the schools. I understand the objective is to keep our kids safe and healthy, which is something we all agree on. So I notice a shot is offered for free. So who wouldn't want something for free? I went to the FluMist data site. This is MedImmune's product information on the shot that we're currently putting in our county schools. Observed within 14 days after 1 dose of FluMist quadrivalent children and adolescents aged 2 to 17 years old, study of 1,341 kids. This is in the package insert of the FluMist. Runny nose and congestion, 32% of the kids. Headache, 13% of the kids. Lethargy, 10%. sore throat 9%, decreased appetite 6%, muscle aches 4%, fever over 100 degrees, 7% of the kids receive this flu mist. Most disturbing of all, through day 28, kids are shedding the vaccine on other kids. According to the package insert of the flu mist shot, the worst days for shedding the flu strain virus is days 2 through 5. And using the Reed-Frost model in the package insert, a child who does not take the flu mist shot has a 2.4% chance of being infected with a flu mist strain, one of the 4 quadrivalent strains. An unvaccinated child has a 2.4% chance of getting flu from this shot. So I would respectfully request that the board review this policy. I would like to volunteer my time as an interested citizen to work with the board if you guys are interested in it and try and figure out what should our policy be going forward in terms of introducing a virus into our schools which is known to shed onto other kids and make them sick. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Board. My name is Debbie Wasson, and I'm Treasurer and Acting President of the Home and Hospital Teachers Association of Anne Arundel County. I'm here to make you aware of the fact that home and hospital teachers that go into the homes or hospitals have not had a pay raise of any kind since the fall of 2015 years ago. We did come and try to speak to the board 2 years ago, but we were told by our superiors that we were not allowed to speak at any board meeting since there is no money for pay raises. I ask you, are there any other employees in the county that have gone 15 years without any pay raise? Some of the other counties have it that if the teachers get a pay raise, home and hospital teachers get 1%. It's not a lot. It'd be like 25 cents or so each time that occurred, but it certainly would be something. Plus, we do get 1 hour of planning time. May I say, if you actually plan properly, there's no way that 1 hour of planning for 6 hours of teaching is sufficient. It's probably more like 3 to 6 hours. Now, Prince George's County pays teachers by their experience, increasing it every 5 or so years. I can get more detailed information on various counties if you wish to see how they provide for their home and hospital teachers. I stuck my neck out on this issue since I do not depend on this money to pay my bills, and I no longer am working at Pathways as a home and hospital teacher, as a math teacher. I only do home teaching and math, so I don't really often get assigned students. But I feel really bad for all the home and hospital teachers that are out there that are working very hard and have had no pay raise all these years. And they sometimes run into risky situations. Just on our September 1st workshop for home and hospital teachers, one teacher said that a student pulled a gun on her. Fortunately, she kept her cool, diffused the situation, and then later contacted authorities to take care of this. So please remember us for the budget hearing in January, and I'll be back to help remind you of our plight. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Aphrodite Bodico, excuse me, and I'm a lifelong resident of the Annapolis area. My husband and I bought our home 2 years ago in Riva. We did this so our kids could attend Davidsonville Elementary, Central Middle, and South River High School, which are highly ranked schools close to our home. Based on the timeline for the Capital Improvement Plan and the MGT School Facilities Study, that the capital plan is built on, my family would be directly impacted by redistricting. Our kids would be redistricted down to the Southern Middle and Southern High Schools, while Pearl Middle Elementary School would be moved up to the South River School Zone. This action alone impacts over 1,300 children. I have 3 children who currently attend Davidsonville. I drive my kids to school and afterwards have an hour commute to work each day. Under the proposed redistricting in the MGT school facility study, I would be one of the people who would be sent to South River. Sorry. So under this proposed redistricting, the thought of having to run back home to pick up a forgotten lunch, a trumpet, or a book bag seems unimaginable with the 20-minute commute each way without traffic. A sick child call during the day would take me an hour and a half to reach my child from work. The distance is too great for our children and parents in this plan. These two schools are located too far away from our homes and not in a direction that is on the way to anywhere. This type of distance would make it difficult for family engagement and kids' participation in extracurricular activities. Southern school boundaries go just north of Deal, and it's clear that being in the southern school zone would make it difficult for our kids to build bonds with peers from their school. So I'm hoping that you'll create an alternative plan, solution, timely, and remove the stress of redistricting from our lives and the uncertainty that will undoubtedly impact our home values as well. Thank you.
Ms. Bodycomb, just to be clear, there is no redistricting plan. There is a recommendation from MGT, but the board has not formed any redistricting committees, which we would have to do before we would bring anything to the public.
Hi, I'm Jane Huderberg. I live in the same neighborhood as Aphrodite, and I'm aware that redistricting is not on the agenda, but this is the time when we talk about things that are not on the agenda, and we talk about them to prevent them from happening, to get a jump start on these things before they get set in the stone. If we did get redistricted, it would be the second time my family's been redistricted. I live in Riva, and 3 years ago, half of Riva was redistricted to Dansonville Elementary. And I accepted that redistricting, for one, because I knew that we would all be reunited at the middle school level. It is hard for a community like Riva to be split like that, but the hope that we all get back together at the middle school and high school level is something that's helped me with my friends who live in the other section of Riva. If Davidsonville is redistricted from my community in Riva, it would be an additional 6.5 miles to Southern Middle School, as opposed to going to Central Middle School. That's an additional 13 miles round trip. Per child. When you think of 180 school days, that's 2,340 extra miles per year. And I'm wondering if the school board looks at the environmental impact of such a long commute, and if they've also looked at the risk of having students exposed to traffic for such a long time, like traffic accidents, gas costs, maintenance of the school buses, and environmental association with so much longer commute for the students. If you look at Riva, it is very close to Route 50 and 97. It's no accident that people locate to Riva because they commute to both Baltimore and Washington. You have a lot of families where one parent goes to Baltimore and one parent goes to Washington. In my family, my husband commutes in the Washington area, and I commute in Annapolis. It's a good location for people who do work not in the local community. It's a jumping off point. Southern Middle and Southern High School are so far away from that commuting point that it would make no sense for us to continue staying in our house if we got redistricted to South County. A lot of people have said that Southern High School is a good school, and I don't disagree with that. But if we had to redistrict to Southern, it would make no sense. It wouldn't matter if it was the best high school in the state. If it didn't work, it didn't work, and it won't work for people who live in Riva. Thank you.
I would encourage you both, if and when out in the future years we are considering redistricting, that you let your principal know that you would like to be on the parent committee so that you can investigate and let us know about all of those environmental concerns. Thank you. I have 5 more cards: Missy Kozlowski, Sharon Moselle, Robert Silkworth, Kathy Hayes, and Robert Castellano.
Hi, President Korbalak, Vice President McNally, Dr. Arlotto, board members. My name is Missy Kozlowski, parent of 2 girls. My oldest graduated from South River in 2011, so she's at Towson doing really well right now, about to graduate. My younger one is a special needs child. She has learning disabilities, she's really complex, and I've learned a lot by being her parent. I kind of used to think like ADHD was some made-up thing, and it's totally not. So at the top of our webpage for Anne Arundel County, it says, elevating all students, eliminating all gaps. I worry that we say these words, but we don't really put our money where our mouth is. When I looked at the big, it's not the operating budget, I guess it is the operating budget, that's several hundred pages long. On page 357, there's a special education budget request, and it requested 53 positions there, and 5 were approved. And when you look at the language on page 355 about what those positions would do, like the consequences of not filling those positions, what you see is things like we're not going to be in compliance with federal law, we're not going to be able to serve our children, give them the services they need, we're going to overload our teachers with paperwork. It's really hard to be a special education teacher. It's really hard to be a teacher. It's really hard to be an administrator. Nobody has an easy job. But we do a really good job of like magnet programs. And somehow we managed to provide buses for after school programs for some of those, for like the performing and visual arts. And I don't want to take anything away because I think they're great. But if there's a child who needs after school tutoring or intervention so they can actually have an elective that they think is fun, we don't provide transportation for them. That's not even something that we've requested, but it's something that we should be doing. I mean, are we actually trying to close the gap, or are we just giving lip service? Thanks for your time. I appreciate it.
Hi there. Hi, I'm Kathy Hayes. I see that I have come on a very busy night and everybody has lots of concerns and they're all so important. And I do feel like mine is equally as important. I'm representing Ridgeway Elementary and also their PTA. And the reason that I'm here is because we are having an issue with parking. This is probably my 3rd year of trying to get something done about it. And I have the backing of the school as well as the PTA behind me. I'm just the voice. The issue that we're having is that Ridgeway has an extremely supportive and active community, and we have tons of events throughout the year, and we have the need for parking. So what ends up happening is we have approximately 360 families, which is about a total of 600 students there. We have 70 staff, so that gives us a total of about 430 potential parkers at any given time, and we have been allotted 66 parking spots. And if you have ever been to Ridgeway during any of our wonderful events, including the county-wide Run, Jump, and Throw, you cannot find parking. Now, I'm not asking for any major improvements. What we've been doing to make this work is parking along the shoulder of Evergreen Road, between the field and the shoulder. And that's worked. It's not ideal, but it's worked. The problem is that after years of parking this way, ruts and divots have developed. And I have personally witnessed 2 cars getting stuck when it rains or if it snows, where they need assistance to get removed. You are taking your car's life in your hands when you try to park there. So it's not an ideal situation, but if we could just somehow fill those divots, that would be fabulous. I have been in touch with at least 3 people through the county already. I know Teresa Tudor contacted Mike McCafferty, the supervisor of maintenance, for me. Lee Phelps, the assistant manager of grounds operations, took a look, and I even contacted the county and had a road maintenance supervisor come and take a look. And the response that I've gotten from all 3 is that we hear the problem, but it's too much money to fix. So it's either there isn't the money, or what they would be willing to do they don't believe would be an effective solution. All I know is the Ridgeway community can't really take no for an answer because we're stuck. Like, we have nowhere to park. And I don't mean to keep saying it over and over. Yeah, stuck literally. And I would love for, if you want to see what I'm talking about, I will pass this up and when you get a chance. And I don't even at this point know what I expect you to say other than turn me on to somebody that might be able to help me. Thank you. Should I come over there?
Thank you.
Good evening, President Korbelak, Vice President Nally, distinguished board members, and Dr. Alada, and a special shout out to Jacob Horskamp, one of our North County Knights that I know is standing tall tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Robert A. Silkworth, and I am a 44-year veteran teacher at North County High School. I am here this evening to introduce myself as the new chairperson of the High School Concerns Committee. The High School Concerns Committee consists of a group of volunteer teachers from all areas who meet on a regular basis to talk about, review, and discuss any concerns at the high school level. Our focus is on collaboration. All issues are on the table. Our committee has existed over 10 years. Diana Peckham was the chairperson during that time. I was vice chair. I was asked to be chair after her retirement in June. We are on the firing line each and every day, and we do have a good understanding of the concerns that our high school teachers have. All of our work is intended to help make the learning environment better for our students and our teachers. As I said, we are volunteers. I have had the opportunity in recent months to speak with many of you, and I am here this evening simply to remind you of our existence and to invite each and every one of you to attend one of our meetings. If you have need of information or if you have questions you would like answered from our perspective, we would be more than happy to help. We do intend to have at least one member of the High School Concerns Committee at each evening Board of Ed meeting this year to report and answer any questions that you might have. We have had 2 meetings thus far, and generally what we would like to do is highlight one issue that was discussed. In our recent meeting, there was an issue about faculty councils, which is something that is mandated by the negotiated agreement. There appears to be some issues and concerns about the operation of faculty councils in a few high schools. For your information, each school is required to have a faculty council, and the mission of the faculty council is to be an advisory group to advise the principal about any issue in the school. Contract language is very specific about the makeup, the formation, and the operation of the faculty council. We do believe that the collaboration in schools is extremely valuable to the health and welfare of the schools. It is teachers and students. This issue was also addressed at the September ARC TAC meeting. I have in my hand a copy of a very simple booklet that explains how it should be operated. We will also discuss this issue tomorrow at our upcoming ASI TAC Advisory Group meeting. And if you would like any further information, I'd be happy to help you. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for allowing me to speak this evening with you. I can report to you from the high schools, ladies and gentlemen, that we have in fact had a great opening so far this year, and we look forward to continuing our journey to greatness. Good job, Jacob.
Good evening. My name is Sharon Moselle, and I serve on the High School Concerns Committee along with Mr. Silkworth. As many of you know, I teach science at Annapolis High School. When I was at North County, I was always excited to hear Mr. Silkworth relate the work of the High School Concerns Committee, and particularly the collaboration with Dr. Arlotto, who was, I believe, Assistant Superintendent at the time. I would just like to reiterate Mr. Silkworth's expression of availability. I plan to attend as many of these evening meetings as possible, both to represent the High School Concerns Committee and to offer feedback from Annapolis High School when appropriate, as we often, for lack of a better word, beta test new procedures before they become policy. Thank you, and go Panthers.
I usually don't need a microphone. Board President, Vice President, thank you for this opportunity. My name is Robert Castellano. I am a parent of a graduate of Southern High School and a young man that is a junior at Southern High School. I am a high school teacher. I do aerospace science in Charles County. Obviously, I teach junior ROTC at one of the 7 schools in Charles County, which all have a junior ROTC program. We are in Annapolis High School, Annapolis Naval Academy, and we have a Navy Junior ROTC program, just one for the county for all the branches. The dilemma I have as a parent, and we are working parents, is that my son was about to be unable to participate in the program because he has to provide, or we as parents, as a family, have to provide transportation. There's transportation for the IB, for Cat South. We have similar programs and provide transportation for all of those. However, for the other high schools that have students that come to Annapolis High School, the only way the program is feasible for them to be a part of is to provide their own transportation. I respectfully request that you look into seeing if transportation can be provided for the one program I'm aware of where students are not provided transportation. Obviously, as an educator, I'm passionate, and I would love to see within my community where I reside and my students that go to school, my children, that we could find that resolution for just the one unit we have. I have a long-term, short-term goals. I'll leave those a recorder. And again, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Mrs. Ritchie?
Just one question, Mr. Silkworth, congratulations maybe. We got the minutes. Mrs. Peckham used to always forward us the minutes, so are we going to be able to do that as well? Because I'm not always necessarily able to get to them.
In the next couple days, you will receive minutes from the meetings we have had.
Yeah, and
absolutely.
Yeah, because they're helpful. Sometimes I don't know when your meetings are and stuff, but
actually our meetings are the second Wednesday of the month, and as I said, we'd like to invite everybody. We're very flexible about that. If I know your schedules are very difficult, we usually meet at TAC, but we can arrange to meet at the board or wherever.
Well, no, sometimes we
okay.
have another job that pays the bills. But anyway.
Thank you.
And just, sir, just one thing. We do have two other. Isn't it correct? We have two other. Yeah.
So we're going in the right direction. I'll also say we start every board meeting with a color guard from the rotating high schools. And it's a classy touch.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't have any other completed cards. Is there anyone else who wishes to address the board at this time? Okay, we will move on to the public hearing on the superintendent's recommended FY 2017 CIP and capital budget. This is a public hearing. Those individuals wishing to testify have signed the sheet that I have before me. As the board wants to hear from everyone who has taken the time to be here tonight, 3 minutes will be allotted to each speaker. If you are here with a group wanting to speak on the same subject, I ask that you appoint a spokesperson to deliver the testimony. Other members of the group are welcome to stand while testimony is given. The light in front of me will flash yellow when you have 30 seconds remaining, and a tone will be heard when your time is up. For the record, please give your name, the spelling of your name, and the group you represent. Copies of comments are welcome and may be given to the board assistant. I would call individuals in groups of 5, but we only have one person signed up. So I will call Mr. Boniface up. But before you speak, we have Jerry Walker would like to speak in abstention via Patty Nally, otherwise known as Jerry Walker.
Good evening. Mr. Walker is watching this, so good evening, and I'm reading this on his behalf. Good evening, Dr. Arlotto, Madam President, and members of the board. As you know now, I have attended many of your capital budget hearings in the past, and I was hoping to be there again this evening. However, last week I had a major operation on my foot and ankle, and I am currently under doctor's orders to remain home with my foot elevated. While I'm not here in person, I'm watching from home, and I want to thank Mrs. Nally for reading my brief comments. It goes without saying that I have advocated for Crofton High School at these annual hearings, and I am thrilled that it has finally made it into the superintendent's budget. Once again, let me say thank you to the entire Board of Ed for working with your partners on the County Council to approve the MGT study and to allow us to have input in the scope of work. I think the MGT reps said it best when they talked about how well Crofton was represented and made their case as a community, but more importantly, as he also said, the numbers backed up what Crofton was requesting. Everyone understands the funding process for schools, knows that it must begin with the superintendent's budget. His funding request now moves to the board for approval and then on to the county government. So Thank you to Dr. Arlotto for putting the first official request for funding Crofton's long-awaited high school. I also want to mention two other schools that are important to me as well, and that is Shady Side Elementary and at the top of the MGT list, Edgewater Elementary. Edgewater is a fantastic example of how the MGT study becomes outdated and needs to be refreshed. In 2005, when MGT released their first study, Edgewater Elementary was further down the last list, but capacity, aging infrastructure, and other problems catapulted them to the top of the list during this updated study. As you will recall, they have had their fair share of issues, and I was down here before you previously advocating on their behalf. I am thrilled that they are at the top of the list, and I hope you will support Dr. Arlotto's request. And last but not least, Shady Side Elementary. As you know, they were bumped down the list as a result of the new study, but the net result was that they are now eligible for classroom walls in their pods. As you may remember, my wife taught at Crofton Woods Elementary in a pod without walls, and so I know firsthand the struggles that students and teachers alike deal with on a daily basis. I am excited for Shady Side and for the upgrades they will receive as they begin moving through the process of enclosing their classrooms. I will close briefly by saying once again that I'm sorry I could not be in attendance, and thank you all. Thank you for all you do for our children and their families. Jerry Walker, Council Chairman.
Okay, Mr. Boniface.
Good evening, President Korbelak, Vice President Nally, Superintendent Arlotto, and members of the board. You all know me, but for the record, my name is Jonathan Boniface, lead organizer of the Build Crofton High School effort. First off, I would like to thank this board for initiating the updated MGT facility study last November. Next, we would like to thank Superintendent Arlotto and his entire staff for utilizing that updated MGT study's findings to plan the fiscal year 2017 capital budget and 6-year CIP. Now we ask that you approve Superintendent Arlotto's capital budget as is, especially Crofton High School and its place on the list. MGT's Edward Humble, a former superintendent of schools himself, said to you in his presentation of the MGT study when speaking of a Crofton High School, and I quote, "We heard from that community loud and clear, but we looked at the data and we give a data-driven plan. They're right, they're right. You ought to have a high school in that part of the county, so we put it in there and we said that's it," unquote. Mr. Humble also added, "That helps you with being able to solve overcrowding in some facilities and start the move towards smaller schools." Build Crofton High School wants to assure you that even though we squeaked louder and pushed harder than most communities, we presented you with the facts and the data to back up our need. Not only did we testify here over a dozen times, we did the same at the County Council. We presented 3 times to the Anne Arundel delegation, and Delegation Chair Pam Beidel assured me we have their support. I met with Speaker Bush in the State House, who assured me that if we got the county to forward fund the Crofton High School project, he would get the state funding for it. We met with and have the support of our county executive, Steve Shue. We have the support of the majority of the County Council. Even Governor Hogan personally expressed his support along the way. What I am getting at is that we have covered all the bases and built the framework of supporters necessary to get this school funded, bipartisan support for a much-needed school. Politics shouldn't have a part in this decision. We, as a county, spent over $313,000 for an objective outside review of our school system facilities and utilization. AACPS has presented you with a capital budget that reflects the findings and recommendations of MGT. We kindly ask you to approve that budget just as it is. Trust our superintendent and his expert staff. BCHS will now fight for AACPS and this board to make sure the board-approved capital budget passes at the next level. As always, thank you for all you do for our great school and for our children.
Thank you. I do have one other card on the budget, Julia Howes. Dr. Frank.
As a resident of Crofton, I'd like to appreciate all the members of Crofton that have come here, and I must say I'm pleased to be able to support Dr. Arlotto and his efforts to build a Crofton High School. My son, now in his 40s, missed the opportunity to go to Crofton High School, so I look forward to helping Dr. Olato support his recommendations. Thank you.
Okay.
This is Zoe. She's a proud kindergartner at Shadyside Elementary. And my name is Julia Howes, Juliahowes. And I am a proud parent at Shadyside Elementary, and I am also an alumni of Shadyside Elementary. I started at Shadyside Elementary in 1992, and the school pretty much looks exactly the same as my daughter is now attending. I am here today to ask that our schools is included in the open space enclosure proposed renovations, and that it be added to the fiscal year 17 budget instead of waiting for another year. We had high hopes of our school being rebuilt soon, and we were told that that wasn't happening due to the results of the MGT study. Our school needs walls. Our open classroom setting is not conducive to learning. Our oversized classrooms leads to loud environments that the students must overcome. The teachers and students eventually adapt, but it's a constant struggle for them. In addition to the noise issue, we have a safety issue. Unfortunately, gun violence has entered schools across the country, and I hope that it never happens to any more schools, but if it was to happen at Shadyside, a gunman would have instant access to 75 to 100 students by opening one quad door. I know this is a horrible thought, but it's a reality with open classrooms. We also have a health issue. Our students are piling jackets, hats, things like that into a closet or a cubby or something like that and sharing that space. With lice and rashes, it's just opening up a health hazard for spreading those diseases. Please consider adding Shadyside Elementary to this budget year for the proposed renovation. Our students need the open space enclosure and other upgrades to help them with a successful elementary career. Thank you for this opportunity to speak, and thank you, Jerry Walker, for your support.
Thank you. I don't have any additional signups. Is there anyone else that came in late that wanted to speak about the budget? Okay, thank you all. We'll move on to our action items. Not yet? Okay. Okay, Mrs. Ritchie.
Just real quickly, the thing was the lady that has her daughter who graduated. Missy, is it Missy? Are you Missy? Yeah, you had the special needs daughter, and you were talking about the teachers and stuff like that. And I know we're talking about the capital budget here, but in December we're going to do the operating budget, and you need to really pay attention to that because see, we've requested teachers, but they haven't necessarily been fully funded. And I know this is not really necessarily the time, but you're here, and I'm going to tell you anyway. But so what you have to do is you have to pay attention to the operating budget because we make requests. We have really good relationships now that we've never had in the past with the county executive and the county council, but they're our funding authority. And so while we may necessarily sometimes request things, they don't necessarily always get funded. So we have to make sure people understand what the importance is. And yeah, so I'm just telling you that, yeah, I'm just mentioning that and to anybody that happens to be listening to it. You know, the fact is that people have to understand that we're not taking, we're investing. And this is a part of an investment. We're going to talk about the construction and the building investment, but we also need to talk about the operating investment. So I'm just saying that to you. Thanks.
Totally get it. Thank you.
Okay, item 5.01, administrative personnel appointments. Dr. Olato, your recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. I recommend that the personnel listed on the attached sheet be promoted and or appointed.
Second. All those in favor? Motion passes 900. Item 5.02, the superintendent's recommended fiscal year 2017 capital budget, 6-year plan, and state capital improvement plan. Dr. Olato, your recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. I recommend that the Board of Education adopt the fiscal year 2017 capital budget, 6-year plan, and state capital improvement plan.
Second. Is there any board discussion? Mrs. Birch?
Thank you. I want to comment that I'm pleased to see the recognition of the needs of some of our elementary schools that have been so so long in need, like Tyler Heights and Edgewater on the list. I know that those communities are very happy and very relieved and looking forward to quickly as possible getting their schools renovated, replaced, whatever it is we end up deciding to do. So I'm very glad to see that. I did want to talk about some concerns I have, though. I want to talk about my concern about how the new school placements were done in the MGT report. The MGT report had no rationale whatsoever for where the new schools were placed in the report. There were scores listed for when existing schools should be renovated, but the report itself had no rationale for why new schools should be built when they should be built. Last night I asked some questions about that at our workshop, and I was given answers from the school system staff, but the independent contractor who produced the report did not have answers to those questions in the report, and I think that was the appropriate place for those answers to be. I feel as though the MGT report process and the capital budget process became a little bit too intertwined, and they should have been much more independent. But now we are here where we are. And unfortunately, we're without the time or the information to explore other options for this year's capital budget. It's not a place I would like to be, but that's where we are. Both the Old Mill and the Crofton High School viability studies will be complete this spring. But Old Mill High School is the only high school that houses students that are attending a school that is rated 63.1. The students that would be attending the new Crofton High School are attending high schools that have ratings in the upper 70s. 63.1 is poor, almost unsatisfactory. But yet we're moving forward with a school to house students who are attending currently fine schools right now. But again, that's where we are. I understand and empathize absolutely with the desires of the Crofton community to have a unified high school. I myself went to Arundel High School with all the residents of Crofton, so I understand that. But from this seat, I'm supposed to be looking out for the needs of all of the students in the county. I feel as though we were not given the opportunity as a board to have the input into the process that would have benefited our county as a whole. But again, we are where we are. And to move our capital budget forward for the good of all of our county at this point, I will be reluctantly voting yes on tonight's budget.
I don't have any other board questions or comments. I just wanted to highlight something that you helped me understand better last night at our workshop, that I did have a concern about why we had not placed Hillsmere Elementary on the list, that we were skipping over 2 elementary schools in order to get to Crofton based on the MGT list, because I know, as the rest of the community realizes, we didn't redistrict Annapolis last year, and we need the capacity complete so that we can do a comprehensive redistricting of all the elementary schools. But you were able to explain about the middle school sort of holding tank. If you wouldn't mind just highlighting that briefly for the benefit of the public.
And for the record, Alex Sheknov, Chief Operating Officer. We here in Anne Arundel County have the benefit, and yet maybe it's not as great a benefit, of only having 3 schools so we can utilize as holding facilities, one being Chesapeake Bay Middle School out on the Mountain Road corridor, second one being Annapolis Middle School out on Forest Drive, and the third one being Southern Middle School down in the Lothian area. The Annapolis Middle School facility currently houses the West Annapolis youngsters, as their building is currently undergoing a comprehensive renovation. And once those youngsters have once the project is completed, they'll be returned back to their new facility in Annapolis. But part of the feasibility study for Tyler Heights will be to determine if that school, again, amongst the 5 options that are variable that are studied, from the do nothing to the total replacement, which option would be pursued. In almost all of those scenarios, it is highly unlikely, given the compactness of the Tyler Heights property as well as the size of school that were contemplated, because as you referenced, it's a rapidly growing area. One, in fact, it was rapidly growing to the extent that we explored redistricting just this prior year. So it is our estimation that it is highly unlikely that no matter what option the board ultimately elects, in all likelihood, those children will have to be moved out of Annapolis, out of Tyler Heights and into Annapolis Middle School as their holding facility. But we need to solidify that, have time for the West Annapolis children to move out, for the Tyler Heights children to move in, and then we'll replicate that same feasibility study for the Hillsmere complex, but that will be informed by the results of the Tyler Heights feasibility study and the decision that's made with respect to Tyler Heights in terms of how we're going to execute that project, and finally what the funding stream is going to be, whether the appropriation authorities of both the state and the county will in fact fund it. So it's one of these issues that we need to slowly unravel this puzzle, but it is in a little bit of a sequential fashion, and we really need to know where we're going with Tyler to best be able to determine where we should head with the Hillsmere project.
So if this board voted to add Hillsmere back into the CIP, we could find ourselves in a situation where we needed to house children from Tyler Heights and Hillsmere at the same time at Annapolis Middle School, and there would not be space for both schools worth of elementary students.
That is correct.
Okay. Mrs. Hummer?
Just moving forward, just while the Crofton people are still here, I wanted to say I applaud y'all for your work and the efforts that you went into and the relationships you've built. And we keep saying that the MGT study is a wonderful study, but it's only as good as the funding that we can get for the next 10 years. And so I implore and encourage the Crofton people to please stay active, even when Crofton is built, to help us continue those good relationships that you've helped us build in the community, so that we can continue working with our local elected officials to ensure that we get the funding for the coming years, so that in these 10 years, we truly can get all the projects done that we want to. And so y'all are the first big one on the list for the high school, but we have several more after, and we need your organization and enthusiasm to continue so that we can get all of those done.
Thank you. Seeing no additional board comments and having already had our public portion for this item, we have a motion on the floor that's been properly made and seconded. All those in favor of the capital budget? Motion passes 9-0-0. Item 5.03 is an information item. This is quarterly assessments policy IIH first reading, and we have a staff presentation.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Jessica Cutches, Legislative and Policy Counsel. This evening, we are bringing you a new policy, Policy IIH, Quarterly Assessments, that will rescind Policy IIA, High School Final Examinations. This policy and its accompanying regulation include exciting proposed changes for the 2016-2017 school year that would provide a more effective approach to teaching and learning. The formulation of the changes that we will discuss have been a result of a collaborative team effort, and this panel is representative of some of the many offices that were instrumental in moving this change forward. Let me introduce our panel. Dr. Maureen McMahon, Deputy Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Kathy Kubik, Associate Superintendent of Schools, Mrs. Michelle Batten, Assistant Superintendent of Schools for Curriculum and Instruction, Mr. Anthony Alston, Executive Director for Equity and Accelerated Student Achievement, Mr. Jason Dykstra, Executive Director for Instructional Data, Mr. Patrick Bathurst, Principal, Savannah Park High School, and Ms. Shannon Pugh, the Manager for Assessments. I will now turn the presentation over to Dr. McMahon, who will discuss some of the reasons for the proposed changes.
Good evening. As a district, we're proposing this move to quarterly assessments to align our focus, right? The focus of our work on students and student learning. So assessments and assessing students shouldn't always or ever be about the testing, but rather about the learning. We want to assess our students on the work they're engaged in a timely way, and then use those outcomes to meet their learning needs. So when we embed the assessments into each quarter, we can then use student outcomes to check for student understanding, reteach where needed, and stretch the students whenever possible. Meaningful and timely feedback for students and their parents regarding student learning is what we're seeking to achieve. And then ultimately, we're seeking to increase student achievement. So we've spoken to many stakeholder groups over the last 12 to 15 months, from students to parents and educators to the citizenry at large in Anne Arundel County. And overall, we received significant positive support for this move to quarterly assessments, especially from the stakeholders who want to reduce the number of tests that we give to students routinely, as well as those seeking to use for us to use testing directly to help adjust the immediate teaching and reteaching of students to meet their needs. And finally, there are a few out there who have asked us, what happens? Is there anything lost if we move to quarterly assessments and remove final exams? So they want to make sure we're not reducing the rigor. And I assure you to the contrary, we are not. We're targeting the assessments to an appropriate window of learning, a 1-week quarter, a 1 9-week quarter. Similar to a college on a semester system, our quarterly assessments will provide a student the opportunity to be tested on that large body of information, but the right cognitive demand for our high schoolers. Let's remember that our college semesters are not 18 weeks in length like our high school semesters. They're much smaller. And in fact, it's more appropriate to offer the quarterly assessments associated with that smaller length of time. The quarterlies will support our students studying for a large test on a significant amount of material, while also providing our students, families, and teachers the opportunities to adjust the studying, the teaching, and the tutorial support needed as students go through their whole academic year.
So, what are the changes? We are proposing to move from benchmarks, midterms, and final exams to quarterly assessments. Quarterly assessments will be administered during a regular class period and will reflect standards covered over a set period of time. Currently, high school students are taking 24 to 40 district-produced assessments per year. Under this proposal, high school students would take 20 district-produced assessments per year. The reduction of district-produced assessment is more apparent at the elementary level. Students would be moving from taking 33 district-produced assessments to 11. So we are reducing the amount of district-produced assessments so students will take and make the ones that they are taking more meaningful. Quarterly assessments will be streamlined and offer a systematic focus on critical thinking, problem solving, and extensive writing. Quarterly assessments are given closer to the time of instruction and will allow teachers to use the data to reteach and accelerate. Our focus is on the teaching and learning taking place in the classroom.
A true benefit to going to a quarterly assessment system is the impact on a child's grade. If you look currently, we determine a child's semester grade by using 3 factors. A first quarter grade, the first 9 weeks, a second quarter grade, the second 9 weeks, and then the semester exam, 40%, 40%, and 20%. What we're proposing is to make the semester grade have only two components, the first quarter and the second quarter. And as Dr. McMahon said, the quarterly assessment will be embedded within that first quarter grade. This will be true for all 8th through 12th grade students. If you look at 6th and 7th grade students, you'll see the same model, 50% on the first quarter grade, 50% on the second grade, but the quarterly assessments will only count for 5%.
From my high school principal's perspective and my colleagues' perspective, we believe this is the best approach to evaluating student progress. It will be more diagnostic with an immediate and timely focus on student strengths and areas for improvement, allowing teachers to offer specific student feedback within that time frame of the semester, and the students given an opportunity to work on those standards, concepts, skills during their coursework as follow-up, and not solely about receiving a letter grade on a report card at the end of a semester. Assessment should be about instruction, and it should be about instructional improvements, and we believe this is of great benefit to teaching and learning for both students and teachers.
As previously discussed, we have been working on these changes over the last year. During that time, these concepts were shared with and we received input from the following groups: the CAC, CRASC, PIAC, PTA, Teen Advisory, TAC, department chairpersons, principals, and teachers. The input we received from these groups helped shape the policy and regulation that you see before you this evening. The policy will be posted on our website for 30 days for additional public comment. We will email information regarding this policy to all parents that we have email addresses for, and we will post information on this policy on all of our social media pages. We welcome any questions you have about quarterly assessments.
Mrs. Ritchie?
Two things. One, to the people in general, pay attention, because even if your kid is not in high school, they're going to eventually get there, and this will affect them. So middle school and elementary school parents, please look at this and know what's coming for you down the pike. I heard you mention district-produced assessments. That doesn't mean that on Friday they may not have a spelling quiz. They can certainly have a spelling quiz. That doesn't mean they won't maybe have a pop quiz in math or something like that, because if you think of any test as an assessment of knowledge, these are the ones that are going to be the whole semester, but they need to also be doing some things all throughout the school year. So there may be little, pop quizzes or, or tests and stuff like that. So that doesn't mean all that's going away.
Right. Formative assessments will still stay in place, and those are teacher-made and directed and based on the current content that day. So exit tickets, checkpoint quizzes, those things will still occur.
Okay. Thank you.
Mrs. Birch?
So we're rescinding the final exam policy and putting this one in place. So like when my son went to, I went to back to school night for middle school, some of this is happening without the policy. Isn't that correct? I mean, because in middle school, they said he was having quarterly assessments this year. So is that happening without the policy going into effect, or are they just doing it because they want to at Brooklyn Park? I'm just wondering.
We are currently actually doing both. Quarterly assessments will happen in the first marking period at the end of the 9 weeks. So then we will assess students on those standards during that 9-week window. Students will still continue to take their semester exams at the end of the semester.
So he's only in 8th grade, though, so most of his classes, just Algebra 1, would he have a final exam, right?
So he'll still take his benchmark
Assessments.
assessments.
All right. They were giving us specific dates. It's going to be in week 8, and it's going to be between this day and that day. Okay.
Mrs. Hubbard?
So are the quarterly assessments, is that now what we're going to call benchmarks, or is that essentially a benchmark now? We're just changing the term.
Yes, with your approval, we're looking to move toward the quarterly assessments that would occur every 9 weeks.
Well, as a benchmark
As a
does now.
benchmark of the
And
learning.
if this policy is approved, when would all this go into full effect?
We are looking to go into full effect next year.
So for
next school year.
2016-17.
Correct.
Thank you.
Dr. Frank?
It's been quite a while since I've been to college, but I remember in college we had one exam at the end of the semester. I wonder if you've had an opportunity to talk with anyone at the University of Maryland and talk with them about the relationship, about what we're doing, and I don't know what they're doing these days. Could you comment about that?
Yes. So the University of Maryland and many of the higher ed institutions, although they still have, in many cases, their semester exams in place, they've moved to a portfolio, a project-based assessment, or a combination thereof. And moreover, what they're trying to do is get away from the notion that there's a large body of information and we wait till the very end in a very high stakes way to assess a student on it. They're moving towards the embedding of, we could call it quarterly assessments, but they're embedding different types of assessments and opportunities to show understanding, whether that be project orientation or a more traditional paper test. But they're doing that in a very different way, led by our very local University of Maryland, Baltimore County, UMBC, which was just in the news recently, number 4 in the nation. For innovation and looking at not only teaching and instruction differently, but also the way to evaluate students differently.
Thank you very much.
Mrs. Ritchie?
I'm sorry, because you brought up something else, and you know, whenever we think about tests or assessments, we think there's paper and somebody's writing stuff, but this could also be a performance based. It could be you know, if you have to do, you're in an art class or whatever, you may be asked to do a project as opposed to necessarily take a traditional looking test. So people need to be aware that assessments don't necessarily mean fill in the little bubble.
I just want to say that I applaud this policy. Working in higher ed, we are making that transition. Yeah. Employers keep telling us that they want students who are information literate and creative and good communicators, and you can't assess things like that very well on a pencil and paper test. And now that we have smartphones, if you need to, we don't have to memorize 18 weeks worth of material, we can look it up. So we need to know how to look it up. So thank you for moving us in this direction. We don't have any more board comments. Do we have any public comments or questions about this first reading? Okay, so we will put it up on the web and get the word out and accept comments that way. Thank you. Item 5.04 is also an information item, the grading policy II first reading.
The Division of Curriculum and Instruction, the Office of School Performance, the Instructional Data Division, and the Division of Advanced Studies and Programs bring revisions to Policy II Grading 2 for first reading. This policy was last updated November 6, 2006. The revisions provided support changes related to the policy that we just discussed, quarterly assessments. This policy will be posted on our website for 30 days for public comment. We will answer any questions you have related to the revisions.
I don't have any board questions. Do we have any public comment? Okay, so we'll post this on the web for 30 days. Item 5.04 is also an information item, policy IIF, high school courses taken by middle school students.
The Office of School Performance and the Division of Curriculum and Instruction bring revisions to Policy IIF, high school courses taken by middle school students to for first reading. Like the last policy, this policy has revisions to follow and support the quarterly assessment proposed changes. This policy was last updated December 19th, 2012. It will be posted on our website for 30 days for public comment, and we welcome any questions you have about it.
I don't have any board questions. Do we have any public comment? Okay, that one will be up on the web too. Thank you. Our next item is item 5.06, the fiscal year 2016 comprehensive maintenance plan. This is an information to action item. Do I have a motion to move this from information to action? So moved. Second. All those in favor? We now have an action item. Dr. Arlato, your recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. I recommend approval of the fiscal year 2016 comprehensive maintenance plan.
Are there any board questions? Is there any public comment? All right. Mrs. Birch.
I just want to ask and I guess clarify for people that all the schools are listed in here, but we wouldn't be doing things for schools that are in our capital plan. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. For the record, Alex Checkno, Chief Operating Officer. That's correct. You'll see a designation called LR, long range, which denotes that we do not have an intention to make an investment in those facilities at this time, seeing that there's a near-term renovation or replacement project scheduled imminently.
Because I think some years people look at these and they say, why are they going to replace the roof on that school when they're going to rebuild it? And I just wanted to make sure people understood that we're not actually going to replace the roof on a school that needs a new roof if we're going to replace the whole school in 3 years. So I just wanted to make sure people understood that. Thank you.
Mrs. Ritchie?
While we're in this one, I just think it's a time to say thank you to this department and to the people that to do all of this work. They're sort of like the unsung heroes in there. They're the ones that are making sure that kids are able to learn in the classrooms, and that the classrooms are, sometimes they're a little too hot, sometimes they're a little cold, but they work on the project. Whenever you call somebody, they're there to help you to do that. They're the ones that on those code red days are out there making sure that the sidewalks are cleared and the students are going to be able to get back into the buildings as quickly as possible. No, we don't go out to the street, but once you get them from the street to the school building, we, help you. And they're the ones that clean up all the sand that we track through there because it's too expensive for us to buy all that salt. So, to help with the traction and things like that. So I wanted to say thank you very much to all of our maintenance staff and for all the hard work that they do, and appreciate that we appreciate you.
Thank you. All those in favor? Motion passes 900. If there isn't any objection from the board, I'd like to bundle and move items 5.07 through 5.14, all schematic designs from information to action. All those in favor? Okay, we now have 8 action items. And I know you're going to do some presentations on a few of them for us.
The first 4.
Yeah, we would like your recommendation.
Okay. Then I'll share it
You
with
have a big recommendation.
I'll share it with you. I recommend the board approval of the schematic designs for Arnold, High Point, Jessup, Manorview, North Glen, Woodside, and Odenton Elementary Schools, as well as Chesapeake High School as listed in the board documents and on the board agenda.
So moved.
Now we can have presentations.
For the record, Lisa Seaman Crawford, Director of Facilities, and with me tonight,
Larry Albert, Supervisor of Planning, Design, and Construction.
Shauna Kaufman, Principal of Arnold Elementary.
Chris Selcott, GWWO, Architect. Matthew Ames, GWWO.
before we begin, I would like to thank all the design committees and principals for the 4 projects we're presenting tonight for participating in the design of these schools. Their input is just immeasurable. In March 2014, the Board of Education, during the feasibility study process, approved a replacement school for Arnold Elementary School. Arnold will be the second prototype design that we will utilize on sites that are not relatively flat. This will reduce grading and costs. This school will meet LEED Silver certification. The schematic designs show the general layout of the school, relationships between public and private spaces, along with site access, bus loop, and parking. Larry Alberts will discuss some modifications to the educational specifications based on instructional input that occurred since your approval in November of 2013, and walk you through the layout of the proposed Arnold Elementary.
We'll try to keep it short for you. The primary change we've made to all 4 schools, not just Arnold, is we've added a 3rd room to the school to provide, in addition to the 2 studio labs that we had previously. This is to allow the EEE program that's been instituted and give more flexibility to the project-based learning that you're trying to present throughout the school. On your drawings for all 4 of them, again, they'll be identified either as art or as learning labs. You'll typically see 1 art room and 2 learning labs. They're still flexible spaces that can be used interchangeably, but those are the primary focus for it. The other minor change that was made, it's going to have an impact, again, because of the project-based learning, is we're going to be providing we're reworking the media center to make it more flexible, and they'll be providing a maker space similar to what they have, although it's much larger, up at East High School. Let me flip over to the page. Arnold Elementary School, if you want to look in your book on page A2, it's after page 60. If you're looking online, it's going to be page 62 in that whole list. For some reason, PDFs don't quite align the same. That's going to be the site plan that we're looking at. And one more, A2, there we go. The school is going to be, the current school, of course, is located toward the front of the site. We're going to be relocating this new school on the back. It'll be constructed toward the back of the bus loop, for those of you familiar. The first floor will be at the same level as the vehicle, the parking lots and bus loops, while the second floor was actually going to be at grade with the play field. Remember, the site has a very large cross slope, and the back of the site is much higher than the front of the site. The new bus will have a new separate bus loop, parents parking, which will be increased to 113 parking spaces, and a drop-off area, all of which will be coming off of the front corner of Joyce Lane. The play areas will remain roughly where they are currently up on the top, and we'll be adding new playground equipment and hard court up at that near the fields. On the next page is the first floor plan. As you can tell, the school's a little different than our normal prototype. It's being built primarily in 3 wings. The entrance is going to be located at the center of the building. There'll be buses on one side, and the parking will be on the other side for the parents, so they all can enter in the center of the building. Pre-K, first grade, the main office, health room, cafeteria, gymnasium, music rooms, and the before and after care will all be located on this floor. I just want to make sure I had everything covered. And then on the next page, which is the second floor, we have, again, this is where you actually see all full 3 wings. This will be, again, as I said, level with the fields, and it'll also provide access for outdoor teaching areas. This level will contain the media center, which is going to be center of the form. 2 wings, which will have grades 2 through 5, and on the third wing will be the flexible learning rooms, which are art, the EEE, the science areas. And with that, we'll leave it to any questions, or if you'd like to have the principal speak.
Don't have any questions on Arnold.
Guess that's
Thank
it.
you.
Thanks.
Next up is High Point. Again, for the record, Lisa Seaman Crawford. No, go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Timothy Merritt, principal of the High Point Elementary School.
Is that like the Ohio State University?
I'm Ron Elkovich, Small and Elkovich Architects.
I'm Dave Fisher, also with Small and Elkovich.
In September 2014, the Board of Education, during the feasibility study process, approved a modernization option for High Point Elementary. So I'll let Larry walk you through that.
The main entrance of High Point is very similar to what you actually saw in the modernization that you voted on back in September. So much of it's what you're familiar with. The new main entrance to the school is actually going to be located to the west side of the school as opposed to on Duval Street. This area will allow better access to the bus loop, the parent drop-off, and I said a bus loop. Bus loop will continue to come off of Duval, whereas the parking, which will now have 113 parking spaces, and the new dedicated parent drop-off will enter off of Edgewood, which will help separate the bus traffic and the car traffic. On the next page, I believe, yep. Excuse me, 2 more pages, I guess. Yep, right there, sorry. This is the plan for the new school. The main entrance is going to be located approximately where the 2-story wing is of that school, for those you hopefully familiar with it, which is on the west side of the building. The goal is we would do this in phased construction, And as we build the addition on the north side, which is that U-shaped facility, which will contain the grades 1 through 2 on that side of the building, that'll be constructed. We'll tear down the old building, or the two-story building, and make the other renovations around the building. The two-story classroom will come in first. The main entrance will be coming in second on the west side, and we will expand also on the east side where you see the gymnasium, the before and after care, and some of the early childhood classrooms. And then for the media center is located in the center. The second floor is really limited to that new addition on the back and will contain grades 2 through 5. Is there any other questions?
Mrs. Hummer?
I just, when I was reading through this, it talked about that currently there is an unskinned ball field. What does that mean? What's an unskinned ball field?
Skinned means there's no dirt pathways for the bases. It's just a grass field.
Okay, thank you. I just was reading and saying, what on earth does that mean? Thank you.
Mrs. Ritchie?
I'm excited for all of them, but particularly for High Point. This is, of course, in my neck of the woods. I've had the opportunity to visit High Point on a number of occasions, and while there's wonderful stuff going on, it certainly does need to be modernized, and so I'm really, really happy that that's going to be occurring, and I can't wait to see the finished product.
That's all our questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jessup is our next. Oh. Again, Lisa Seaman Crawford, Director of Facilities.
She's over there.
She's a new.
Okay, Larry Alvin,
They're afraid.
Supervisor, Planning, Design, and Construction.
Kieran Wilmus, Scriven Parker Architects.
Anita Dempsey, proud principal of Jessup Elementary School.
In March 2014, the Board of Education, during the feasibility study process, approved a replacement school for Jessup Elementary. Jessup Elementary will be our original prototype design, similar to Lothian. The school will meet LEED Silver certification. I'll turn it over to Larry.
And I don't know which page we're on here. It's page 53 in your book, if you're looking at the hard copy. Actually, the whole new school is going to be moved behind the current school. So for those of you disappointed, it's not on 175. We're going to push it back a little ways. I know some of you are going to be very upset by that. It is our standard prototype. It'll look very similar to Lothian. So the parent drop-off and parking, the parking will be increased to 115 spaces, will be located on the east side of the building, or on the bottom as you're looking at it there. We'll be adding a new separate bus loop to the other side of the building. The main play fields we constructed behind the school, and the kids will remain in the current school while we're doing all this construction. We'll tear down the new school and relocate it. One thing we're going to explore further is, I know a lot of people are concerned about School Drive, or whatever the little road is that you currently come in that's a blind corner. We are going to look a little bit further at how we might be able to relocate the entrance and exit further up to roughly where the exit is to the school now, the parking lot. On the next page, page 57 actually, is the first floor plan. As I said, it's very similar to Lothian. The primary difference is going to be that we're going to create a courtyard. This is because of the addition of the EEE program, and that third room I spoke of earlier, that will be placed in that wing to the, as you're looking to the right. So there'll be 2 learning labs and the art lab. They'll have access to the courtyard for programs as well as the exterior. So that's the only really major difference. The other minor difference is the media center, we're looking at trying to refocus it closer to the entrance rather than being kind of tucked behind. The second floor is going to be for grades 2 through 5, and it's going to look pretty much the same way as we did before. It's a U-shaped facility. And with that, if you have any questions?
Mrs. Ritchie?
I don't really necessarily have a question, but having had the opportunity to live through a school being built when the students were still in the other school building when my daughter was in school. There's some challenges, and that's the equipment and sometimes the noise factor and things like that. And so to the community, I would just say, bear with it, because you're going to get a brand new school out of this. And sometimes we can't help those things, but we try to do things to minimize the disruption to instruction. I mean, like, we're not going to bring in heavy cranes on days necessarily when there's kids in there. We try to bring those pieces of equipment in after school hours, before school hours, days off, and so forth like that, because we try to minimize those things. But and there's going to be disruption to your ball fields that are there, and there's going to be disruption to your parking. But look at the goal. Look at the end sight, and the end sight is you're going to get a new school, and it's going to be so much better than what you have now. So just kind of remember that.
Mrs. Burge?
I just can't even say how excited I am about this, because your school is the most confusing school I have ever been in my entire life. If anyone ever left me alone in there, I would never find my way out. I don't know what they were thinking when they built those additions on there, because it's bizarre. That's all I can say. I do have a question, though, about the space that's going to be left empty when the old school is demolished. Because it's so close to the road, is that going to be usable as playground space? I'm just curious, how usable is that going to be? Because,
Actually, we'll probably have to reforest it, as we're removing a number of trees in the back, so we'll probably end up planting that area.
Okay.
The primary field is going to be behind the school.
Okay, so it won't be a lot of open space. Okay. All right.
We don't anticipate it to be.
Okay, because, I had these visions of kids starting out on the highway, and it was scaring me. So, thank you.
I remember when your former PTA president started advocating for this, so you will have to invite her back for a ribbon cutting.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I guess we're ready for number 4.
Thank you.
Once again, Lisa Seaman Crawford, Director of Facilities.
Larry Albert, Supervisor of Planning, Design, and Construction.
Barry Gruber, the very excited principal at Manorview Elementary.
I'm Jeremy Klein with Wheeler Goodman Massick Architects.
Back in September of 2014, the Board of Education selected a revitalization option for Manorview Elementary. With that,
the plan for this school is very similar to the revitalization. The primary difference in this is we're only going to be doing 2 additions as opposed to 3 additions that you saw on that plan. That's to get us away from that rubble field that's on the back side of the school. If you'd like to look at page, 43 SD2 in your book, or 45 if you're looking at it digitally. Here we go. Again, the site plan is very similar to what you have seen out there. We're going to provide a new dedicated bus loop separate from the rest. The parking lot that was on the west side of the site is going to be refurbished, but it'll be for the main parking lot for staff and parents. And we will be providing a dedicated bus parent drop-off to the, what do you want to call it, southeast side of the school. The additions are highlighted in dark, as you can see on the front of the site, so that's where we go for there. On the 2 pages later, on page 47, this is a single-story school, so there's only 1 floor plan that you have to look at on this case. We're going to enclose the 5 of the 6 pods. That will give walls and all the recruitments we have. The 6th pod is going to be used for the media center. We'll be relocating over to that side of the building. The current media center, which is in the center of the building, is going to we're actually proposing to remove the roof on it and provide a courtyard that'll provide lighting and air into the center of the building. It's a rather dark facility, I think most of you would say when you walk into the middle of these schools. The admin area will be enlarged. That's one of the additions. And the other addition is to enlarge the gymnasium to meet the current 6,000 square feet that we have, including community space. This does, remember, it's grades 1 through 5, so there's no pre-K, K. They're over at West Mead, which also means there's no before and after care space because the post has their own daycare program. There's no before and after care space because the post has their own daycare system. That's why it's not there. No, there's no K or pre-K either. They're missing. If there's any questions?
We don't have any questions.
And there's no presentation for that.
Right, so we have the other 4 schematic designs. And does any of the board have questions on the remaining 4, the kindergarten additions and the Chesapeake High open space enclosure? Okay, so we are ready to take a vote on all 8 schematic design approvals. All those in favor? Motion passes 900.
Thank you.
Thank you. And our last item tonight is a consent item 6.01, award of contracts. This is an information to action item. Do I have a motion to move this from information to action? Second. All those in favor? We now have an action item. Dr. Orlato, your recommendation, please.
Yes, ma'am. I recommend that the Board of Education award contract number 16CN-001, open space enclosure at Glen Burnie High School, to Baltimore Contractors Incorporated in the amount of $2,050,488.
Second.
Is there any public comment on this item? All those in favor? Okay. Before we conclude our meeting, the next Board of Education meeting is Wednesday, October 7th at 10 a.m. here in the boardroom. The next Board Policy Committee meeting is Wednesday, October 14th at 1 p.m. in the boardroom. And the Budget Committee meeting will meet Tuesday, September 22nd at 11 a.m. after the superintendent breakfast. The room is to be announced. And that concludes our meeting. Thank you.
We're talking about integration and stuff like that. Some of the students need to have some